Imagine waking up to the gentle lapping of water against the shore, the morning mist rising off a crystal-clear lake that has been in your family for generations. That's the life Elias Thompson had carved out for himself on his sprawling property in the rolling hills of Virginia. After losing his wife to a long illness 5 years ago, Elias, a retired engineer in his late 50s, had retreated to this ancestral home, a modest cabin overlooking a private lake surrounded by dense woods. The lake wasn't just water. It was his sanctuary, a place where he could cast a line, swim on hot summer days, or simply sit on the dock watching the sunset paint the sky in hues of orange and pink. No neighbors encroaching, no rules dictating his every move. It was perfect solitude. That peace shattered the day Victoria Hargrove moved into the newly built subdivision next door. Victoria, a sharp-tongued real estate developer turned HOA president, had spearheaded the creation of Lakeview Estates, a cluster of upscale homes marketed as having exclusive lake access. But the truth was, the actual lake belonged entirely to Elias. His family had owned it outright since the early 1900s, with deeds clearly marking the boundaries. The subdivision's developers had negotiated a narrow easement for a community dock on one small corner, but that was it. Victoria, however, saw the lake as an amenity that should bend to her vision of a controlled, pristine community. Started small. Victoria sent letters claiming Elias's old wooden dock was an eyesore and violated some vague aesthetic guideline, even though his property wasn't part of the HOA. When he ignored them, she escalated. One afternoon, as Elias was enjoying a refreshing swim to beat the summer heat, Victoria appeared on the shared boundary line with a clipboard and a smug grin. "Sir, swimming in untreated water is a health hazard," she declared loudly, as if addressing a crowd. "I'm issuing a citation under county health ordinances. $1,000 fine, payable immediately." Elias climbed out of the water, dripping and dumbfounded. "This is my lake, ma'am. Private property. You have no jurisdiction here." But Victoria waved a printout of an obscure 1930s regulation about public waterways, twisting it to claim his swimming posed a risk to the shared ecosystem. She even called the county office to report him, but the clerk laughed it off, until Victoria persisted, bringing in a friend who posed as an inspector. The fake inspector, a man named Harold with no credentials, showed up unannounced, poking around Elias's shoreline and accusing him of operating an unlicensed boating rental because he had a small rowboat tied up. "Commercial activity on residential land," Harold muttered, scribbling notes. Victoria stood behind him, nodding approvingly. Elias recorded the whole encounter on his phone, sensing trouble. Sure enough, days later, a backdated notice arrived. An additional surcharge on liability insurance for anyone bordering the lake, tacked onto Elias's property taxes somehow through HOA influence. $600 a month. Furious but calculated, Elias hired a lawyer, Rebecca, a no-nonsense attorney who'd dealt with overreaching HOAs before. While Rebecca dug into the paperwork, Elias noticed something odd during a walk along the boundary. Several homes in Lakeview Estates had fences and patios extending into protected wetlands adjacent to state land. He anonymously tipped off the environmental department, providing photos. Within weeks, inspectors descended, fining 3 homeowners thousands for illegal encroachment and ordering removals. Victoria retaliated swiftly. She contacted local news, spinning a story about Elias polluting the lake with runoff from his neglected property, endangering children who used the community dock. A reporter showed up, camera rolling, as Victoria dramatically pointed to non-existent debris. But Elias was prepared. He presented water quality tests he'd commissioned, pristine results, and historical deeds proving sole ownership. The segment aired with Elias coming off as the reasonable victim, Victoria as the meddling busybody. Not deterred, Victoria filed complaints about Elias's septic system allegedly leaking contaminants. Inspectors found nothing. The system was modern and compliant. She then tried for a restraining order, claiming Elias was harassing residents by staring from his dock. At the hearing, the judge reviewed the evidence, Elias's recordings of the fake inspector and Victoria's baseless claims, and not only dismissed her petition but warned her against further frivolous filings. As Rebecca delved deeper into the HOA's founding documents, she uncovered gold. An overlooked clause from the original charter allowing any landowner within 800 feet of the subdivision to petition for full voting membership, with shares proportional to acreage. Elias's property dwarfed the others. Joining would give him nearly 35% control. Meanwhile, Rebecca discovered the subdivision's density exceeded zoning limits granted by a temporary variance that had expired years ago. Correcting it could force demolitions or massive retrofits, bankrupting many residents. Worse, Victoria had been funneling HOA funds into inflated contracts with companies linked to her family. Elias bided his time, quietly rallying a few disgruntled neighbors. Tom, a mechanic tired of petty rules. Susan, a teacher fed up with rising dues. And Mark, a retiree who'd clashed with Victoria before. They planned for the upcoming annual meeting, where everything would come to a head. The emergency HOA meeting Victoria called was meant to be her triumph. A vote to expand rules and impose special assessments for lake maintenance, effectively taxing Elias indirectly. She held it in her oversized garage, surrounded by loyalists, confident no one would challenge her. But Elias and his allies arrived prepared, membership application in hand. Victoria's face paled as Elias presented the charter clause. "This entitles me to join as a full member," he stated calmly. She tried to block it, claiming the meeting lacked quorum without him, then called the police when voices rose. Officers arrived, reviewed the documents, and sided with Elias. The meeting could proceed, but fairly. Residents, sensing the shift, voted to relocate to the community clubhouse for neutrality. There, under proper procedures, Rebecca laid out the bombshells. The expired zoning variance threatening home values, evidence of Victoria's kickbacks on landscaping and maintenance contracts, hundreds of thousands siphoned over years. Tom stood up, projecting invoices showing Victoria's brother-in-law's company charging triple market rates for basic mowing. "We've been paying for her lifestyle," he said, holding up bank statements obtained through a subpoena. Susan added details on how dues had skyrocketed without improvements, funds vanishing into vague, administrative fees. Victoria sputtered, launching personal attacks. Elias was a recluse endangering the community, bitter from his loss. But it backfired. Residents murmured about their own grievances, unjust fines, ignored repair requests. Mark proposed motions: audit all finances, suspend Victoria pending investigation, accept Elias's membership. The votes were overwhelming. Elias's application passed, granting him significant influence. A full forensic audit was mandated, and Victoria was removed as president immediately. As the meeting wrapped, state authorities, tipped off earlier, waited outside with questions about the zoning violations and potential fraud. In the months that followed, the audit exposed more: embezzlement totaling over $200,000. Victoria faced charges. Her home foreclosed to repay the HOA. The subdivision scrambled to comply with zoning, but with Elias's voting power, fair compromises emerged: no demolitions, but scaled back plans and refunded overcharges. Elias didn't lord it over anyone. He pushed for lower dues, relaxed rules on minor aesthetics, and even allowed limited, supervised access to his lake for community events on his terms. He raised Victoria's former assessments indirectly through proper votes targeting waste. But the real win was restoring balance. Now, Elias swims whenever he wants, the lake as peaceful as ever. Victoria moved away, her reign a cautionary tale. And the neighborhood? Thriving under new leadership, proving that sometimes the quiet outsider holds the real power.